Welcome back to Pink Flicks. Today I've brought you the movie called The Handmaiden. It is a South Korean erotic and psychological thriller film from 2016. Spoiler alert. Watch out and I hope you like it. The movie initially starts off with a poor girl, appearing to hand over her child and head to this giant mansion to make her living. A woman named Sasaki greets her and gives her a Japanese name called Tamako. Sasaki then said you'll be sleeping just across from the lady's bedroom as she is her handmaiden. When left alone, she tries to peek into the room but a loud noise scares her back to her tiny cot. Later in the night, Tamako awakens to hear Lady Hideko screaming. She rushes into her bedroom and comforts her. Hideko says she had a nightmare and tells Tamako that her aunt had hung herself from the big cherry tree. She comforts the lady by singing to her. The next day, Tamako finds Lady Hideko reading in the library with her uncle. She tries to approach but is told not to go past the snake. A few days later, Tamako bathes Lady Hideko with flowers and scented oil, after heard Count Fujiwara is coming to the mansion. While bathing, Lady Hideko complains one of her teeth is sharp. Tamako grabs a thimble and begins shaving it down. The two exchange sexual energy and she admires Lady Hideko's naked breasts. Count Fujiwara comes over to the mansion to teach art to Hideko and helps Uncle Kozuki with art selling. Fujiwara calls Tamako to meet in private. It is quickly revealed that things are not as they appear. Tamako is actually Suki, who is an orphan raised by a Miss Baksun who teaches children how to steal and commit forgeries. This group of con artists get abandoned new babies, feed them and sell them to Japan. So, going back to that first scene, that is not Suki's baby. It's another orphaned newborn being raised to be sold to Japan. Count Fujiwara, a conman, approaches this group and talks about his scheme. He has identified a certain single Japanese heiress who he wants to marry to inherit her fortune. Lady Izumi Hideko lives with her uncle Kozuki, a Korean man who helped the Japanese take over his country in exchange for a gold mine. He wants Suki to work as her handmaiden so she can persuade Lady Hideko to fall in love with him. After Fujiwara gets the inheritance, he plans on declaring Lady Hideko insane and send her off to a mental asylum. Back to the present, she tells him how naive Hideko is, and the plan is to keep convincing her that she's falling in love with Fujiwara. As days go by, Suki and Hideko getting close. Lady Hideko arranges for Suki to be dressed up, which is a new experience for her. She finishes off the look with sapphire earrings. They button each other dresses up, which is depicted in a very sexual way. Suki asks if Lady Hideko is planning to marry her uncle. Hideko points out that's what he raised her for, knowing he'd need access to her money one day. The Count paints with Lady Hideko, trying to be flirtatious. Suki watches and feeling sorry for Lady Hideko for being duped. Lady Hideko and Suki talk about how the lady's mother died in childbirth and it's like she strangled her as punishment for being born. Suki takes this to heart and tells her no baby is guilty of being born and that her mother would probably have been very happy to have given life to her. This surprises and touches the lady. The next day, Count taking the Hideko outside for a painting lesson, sending Suki to run errands so he can be alone with Hideko. Suki rushes to grab things but when she returns, she sees both are kissing passionately which makes her terribly jealous. At night, the servant's bell rings, and Suki is called into the lady's bedroom. The lady says she can feel a nightmare coming on and suggests Suki sleep in bed with her. After a while, she tells Suki that the Count asked to elope with her when her uncle leaves to visit his gold mine. When Hideko asks her what married life will be like, Suki teaches her how to kiss by demonstrating on her. Then she begins to make love to her under the context of showing her what it will be like when she makes love to the Count. The two women end up having sex for the first time. The next time the Count is painting with Lady Hideko, he orders Suki to find another job to do. But Suki stopped and said she has no other job except to look after the lady. Outside the grounds, the Count yells at Suki for not helping him with his plan. He puts her hands on his crotch and tells her to feel how much he wants her fortune and tells her he's not going to let her f*** it up. They both threaten each other by telling them who they really are. Suki responds by saying Lady Hideko has no one on earth and if he frightens her, she'll close up like a clam. She adds not to ever put her hand on his tiny joke of a again. Now Suki follows the plan accordingly, telling Lady Hideko that she is falling for the Count. Hideko herself suggests she loves someone, but Suki insists on the marriage with Count. Hideko slaps her and violently throws her from the room. Nonetheless, Lady Hideko agrees to marry the Count if Suki can go with them to Japan. The uncle leaves the estate to visit his gold mine while the Count pretends to leave but secretly hides so he can sneak off with Lady Hideko. As soon as her uncle is gone, Hideko leaves with the Count and Suki on a ferry to Japan. Once there, Hideko and the Count are married. The next morning, Suki stops by their room and finds blood on Hideko's sheets, alluding to having lost her virginity. After cashing out Hideko's inheritance, the three of them arrive at the place. The staff takes Suki instead of Hideko. It is now revealed that Hideko's naivete was part of the con. She and Fujiwara double-crossed Suki and convinced the asylum that she is the Countess, to have her committed in Hideko's stead. We now learn about the backstory of Lady Hideko. As a little girl, she has to put metal balls in her mouth while she is hit repeatedly by her uncle. Hideko's aunt instructs her in Japanese by reading books that end up being graphic and teaching her words like penis and vagina. Hideko finds it silly and both started laughing, but her uncle comes by and grabs both of their faces, suffocating them before letting them go. The young Hideko reads from a graphic story and her uncle yells at her lack of articulation. She flashes back to the day of her aunt is unable to handle all the abuse and commits suicide by hanging from a cherry tree in the courtyard. When Hideko questions the description of hanging in a book, Kozuki tells her that he murdered her aunt using torture devices in the basement after she attempted to run away. Meanwhile, the readings continue for the Japanese book collectors and the stories are more and more graphic. She also performs demonstrations of the material for the audience as she chokes herself and whipped. She sits on a wooden puppet and is lifted to the ceiling. The man who pretends to be Count Fujiwara is involved in these readings, hired for forgeries. Count Fujiwara and Lady Hideko talk over dinner. He realizes that Hideko is not naive and is stone-hearted. There would be no way to get her to fall in love with him. He reaches out to Hideko and tells her that he has a plan to get her away from this abusive life of hers. When Hideko expresses her fear of her uncle, the Count gifts her a vial of opium with which to commit suicide, so that she can never be taken to the basement alive. They plan to find a handmaiden for her who they will send to a madhouse under Hideko's name. They get rid of her old maid after she is caught having sex with the Count. We now see Suki's arrival from Hideko's perspective. When Suki tries to peek in her room, she bangs against the wall, scaring her. Then she screams to get Suki to come, claiming she had a nightmare. In the next flashback, we see Suki bathing Hideko and fixing her tooth, but now we see this was followed by Hideko inviting Suki to join her in the tub. Fujiwara instructs Hideko to act naive but hesitates to fall in love with him. This would ensure that Suki is kept busy with her task of playing Cupid. Also as before, Suki is very kind towards Hideko when she discusses losing her mother in childbirth, leading Hideko to feel a companionship towards Suki. Count Fujiwara and Hideko really don't like each other and both only tolerate the other to go along with their plan. Suki becomes jealous, which Hideko notices. As before, when she is away running errands, Suki rushes back to find them kissing passionately. Now we see that they staged that pose just to convince her they were falling in love. We see the scene again where Hideko and Suki have sex, under the pretext of educating Hideko on how to please a man. But now the lesbian sex scene is extended and more graphic, showing both women taking turns orally pleasuring each other as well as grinding. Suki tells Hideko that she is a natural at performing sex. Now we see the scene where Hideko slaps Suki. She then grabs the rope and goes to hang herself from the same tree her aunt had, saying she wishes she'd never been born. But when hanging from the tree, before she can fall, Suki appears and holds Hideko by the legs. She immediately confesses to everything, how she was trying to trick her into marrying the Count and they were going to send her to the madhouse. Hideko asks, Suki, are you worried about me? Suki got confused and asks how she knows her name since she's pretended to be a handmaiden named Tamako. Hideko then confesses the plan to send Suki to the madhouse in her place. Then, both of them confess their love for each other. With the help of Hideko, Suki writes home and tells Miss Baksun there is a change of plans and they need her help with a forgery. Next scene, Hideko's uncle drives away to visit his gold mine. With him gone, Suki is finally able to explore the library. Hideko shows Suki the books she was forced to read. Suki is furious and begins destroying the library. Hideko calls Suki, her savior, and joins in destroying her uncle's collection. The two women are finally free, preparing for Hideko to elope, and we see them running through the fields, laughing. Cut to Suki being put in the madhouse. Instead of sadness, Hideko is seemingly unaffected and says she's hungry. Hideko and Count Fujiwara dine at a nice restaurant. Their plan has worked. Meanwhile, Suki laughs hysterically while eating dinner at the mental hospital. The Count confesses he might like Hideko and suggests they get married again, now that she's stolen Suki's identity. She inquires whether he feels remorse about having locked Suki in a madhouse alone, but he says she's naive and deserves her fate. In the madhouse, a fire is set allowing Suki to escape with the help of her friends posing as firefighters. Back at a hotel, Hideko dips the opium the Count gave her into a wine glass. She drinks wine from her glass, hoping he'll follow, but he doesn't. She lets him kiss her breasts and finally she drinks from his glass and transferring a wine from her mouth to his. He then gets aggressive towards her sexually, but before he can harm her, he passes out from the opium. Before she leaves, she takes the belongings of Count Fujiwara and the money. Now Suki and Hideko have reunited. Suki has taken a picture of Hideko dressed as a man and uses her forgery skills to replace the photo in Count Fujiwara's ID. They trying to flee together, disguising Hideko as a man to avoid detection. Meanwhile, Kozuki men capture Count Fujiwara upon receiving a letter from Hideko detailing Fujiwara's deception. He tortures Fujiwara in his cellar with his collection of antique bookmaking tools and presses him for sexual details about his niece. Fujiwara makes up a story about their wedding night, but a flashback shows that he watched Hideko masturbate before cutting her hand on a knife to stain her sheets, refusing to consummate the marriage. When Kozuki presses for more details, Fujiwara convinces him to give him one of his cigarettes. After smoking, a disgusted Fujiwara refuses to give further details. Kozuki notices the cigarettes are producing blue smoke. Fujiwara reveals that his cigarettes were filled with mercury and they both are now poisoned from the smoke. The uncle dies first. He then inhales the air in an effort to kill himself. The two women have made it to the ferry. Hideko gets rid of her fake mustache now that they're safe en route to Shanghai. The film ends with Hideko and Suki making love to each other in their newfound freedom. If you liked the content, make sure to subscribe and turn on notification, so you can watch more of this. Thank you for watching.